All right, so we're diving into Arcesilaus today. You probably already know he's a big name in ancient Greek philosophy, but we're going a little deeper. Kind of beyond the surface level stuff, we really want to grasp how he approached skepticism, how he kind of pushed the limits of knowledge, what we can really know.
Yeah, and I think that's what's really interesting about him, especially for philosophers, right? It's not just another theory. He's questioning, like, the basis of knowledge itself.
Exactly. And we've got some excerpts here from the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. It gets pretty intense. So Arcesilaus, he led the skeptical branch of Plato's Academy, which is, just that alone is wild. Yeah. Taking that Socratic tradition and pushing it in this whole radical direction.
It's like Socrates on steroids,
Yeah.
Just constantly questioning everything, refusing to accept those easy answers. But that's also what makes him such a tough figure to really pin down. We don't have anything he wrote himself. It's all from other people, secondhand accounts, criticisms from his rivals. It's kind of piecing it together.
Yeah, it's like a philosophical detective story. But before we go too far down that rabbit hole, let's set the stage a bit. We know that he was a huge critic of the Stoics and their ideas about knowledge. So can you maybe give us like a crash course, Stoic Epistemology 101?
Sure. Well, the Stoics, they were all about logic and reason. They believed in these things called cognitive impressions, which were basically super vivid perceptions. And they thought because they were so vivid, they just guaranteed knowledge. So it's like, imagine experiencing something so clear in such detail that you just, you knew it had to be true.
Okay, yeah. I can see how that would be appealing, especially to philosophers who are all about logic and reason. But how did Arcesilaus actually challenge that? Because it sounds kind of airtight.
Well, he was really good at using examples, like really clever examples to expose those weak points. He'd ask things like, okay, imagine identical twins or two eggs that look exactly the same. Could you always tell the difference, even with the best, most perfect perception?
That's a good one. Yeah, those cognitive impressions. Not so foolproof anymore. It's like, what if you think you're seeing one twin, but it's actually the other?
Exactly. And he didn't just stop there. Arcesilaus also used things like dreams, hallucinations, even, madness, states of mind where your senses are basically giving you wrong information. And if that can happen, how can we ever be absolutely sure that we're not being tricked all the time?
Yeah, that's the heart of it, right? This idea of nothing can truly be known. Philosophers call it inapprehensibility.
Yeah.
But if nothing can be known, doesn't that also include his own ideas about skepticism? Isn't that a bit of a paradox?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, right? And it brings us to another big idea from Arcesilaus, universal suspension of assent. Basically, we should hold back from judgment, like avoid forming really strong beliefs because we can never be totally certain.
So it's not that he's saying, I know for a fact that nothing can be known. It's more like, look, I've examined all these arguments, I've thought about the evidence, and I'm just not convinced by any of it, even his own doubts.
You got it. And that's what I think makes him so frustrating, but also so interesting for philosophers, right? It forces us to confront the limits of our own knowledge. Like, what does it even mean to believe something? He's almost like, he built this trap, a philosophical trap. If we can't truly know anything, how can we even be sure that he's right about that? Like, it makes you question everything, the tools we use to think about knowledge.
Totally. And for philosophers especially, it's a tough one to swallow, right? We pride ourselves on, like, reason, argumentation, finding the truth.
Well, for sure. I bet the Stoics had a field day with this. They were all about, living in accordance with nature, using reason to guide our actions. They must have thought this would just lead to, like, complete paralysis, because if you can't be sure of anything, how do you make decisions?
Right. That's a good point. It's very practical, right?
Yeah.
We can't just spend all our time pondering the limits of what we can know. We have to live our lives.
So how did Arcesilaus deal with that? Well, that's where this thing comes in, the practical criterion. It's a bit tricky to grasp, but it's basically a way to navigate through life without needing total certainty.
So instead of getting stuck in those endless doubts, we use something else. But what is that something else?
Arcesilaus said that we can act on what seems reasonable, like in that moment, even if we can't actually prove it's the right thing to do. Just think about it. You're hungry, you see an apple, looks good, you eat it. You don't need to write a whole philosophy paper to justify that.
I see. It's like we use judgment, experience, our gut, whatever you want to call it. We just get through the world without perfect knowledge.
Yeah, precisely. And there are different interpretations of what this practical criterion even is. Like, some people think it's about instinct, while others say no, it's about weighing those arguments, but without really deciding what's true.
So it's not some magic formula for getting everything right. It's more like, okay, we live with uncertainty. We make choices that seem okay with what we've got.
I think that's a really good way to put it. And it shows why Arcesilaus is still relevant, for philosophers today. It's like he's forcing us to confront this fact, this reality, that we act without full knowledge. And think about how we do that.
He wants us to be like more humble intellectually,
Yeah.
right? Recognize that we don't know everything, but we still got to live a good life.
Exactly. And this brings up another layer to all this. Remember, he was the head of Plato's academy. The whole point of that was to find true knowledge. So how does his whole skepticism thing, how does that fit in with Plato?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, some people think Arcesilaus totally went against Plato.
Right.
Plato's looking for these eternal truths, and then Arcesilaus is saying, maybe they don't exist.
Right. There's definitely that tension. But others say, no, he was actually being true to the academy in a way. Like Socrates, he was all about questioning everything, challenging what people thought. Maybe Arcesilaus just took it further, like to the extreme.
So it's not skepticism versus knowledge. It's like skepticism is the ultimate form of trying to know things. Because you refuse to settle, you keep questioning, you push people, you're doing the deepest philosophy there is.
Now, that's an interesting way to think about it. It's like he's saying, don't believe everything you hear. Doubt, challenge, push those boundaries of what you think you know. And I gotta say, that really speaks to me, even after all these years studying philosophy.
Me too. He's reminding us that the journey, like the process of doing philosophy, is just as important as having all the answers. Maybe even more important when you think about Arcesilaus' skepticism. But then this brings up another question. If he thought we can't really know anything for sure, why spend his whole life debating? Was he just putting on a show?
See, that's one of those big mysteries. Some people think, yeah, he didn't actually believe anything, just playing the skeptic, getting people to think about their own ideas. But others say, no, he was truly looking for the truth, even if he thought we couldn't really grasp it completely.
So maybe, for him, being a skeptic wasn't the goal itself. It was a starting point. You get rid of all the dogma and what you've been told, then you can really start to question things.
That's a good way to see it. It means that even with all the uncertainty, even if we can't get to the truth with a capital T, the search, trying to grapple with those questions, it's still worth doing.
And for philosophers, that's what we do, right? But how do we square that with, like, the need to act, to make decisions, when we can never really be 100% sure?
Well, that's where the practical criterion comes back, remember? It's not about, like, a recipe for perfect decisions. It's about knowing we have limits, but still being reasonable, even with all the uncertainty.
It's like he's saying, the world's messy, confusing, we won't have all the answers, but that doesn't mean our lives can't be good, meaningful lives.
Exactly. And I think that's a powerful message for anyone, not just philosophers. It's about humility, thinking critically, and being okay with not knowing everything. But you know what I find really interesting? He wasn't just a skeptic. He really engaged with those who came before him, especially the Stoics. He didn't just tear down their arguments. He wanted to understand them, see if there was something good in there, something to learn from.
Oh, that's a good point. He wasn't just saying nothing matters. He was a thinker, really involved in this search for truth, even if he thought we might never get there completely.
And that's why I think he still matters today. To philosophers, I mean. He makes us look at what we know, question our assumptions, deal with those big questions. Reality, truth, what is belief? He doesn't give you the easy answer. He gives you the tools to think harder, better.
And that's maybe the best thing a philosopher can do.
Yeah.
It is amazing, right? A philosopher from, what, like 2,000 years ago?
Yeah.
And we're still debating his ideas.
It's not just history, though, right? It's that Arcesilaus brings up questions that are still so relevant for philosophers today. Like, what does his skepticism mean for epistemology in general? It's like he's making us rethink what it means to know something at its core.
Exactly, yeah. If our senses can be wrong, if even those really strong perceptions can be misleading, then where does that leave us? Does knowledge just become, like, subjective? A matter of opinion?
That's what philosophers have struggled with for a long time. And Arcesilaus, maybe he didn't have all the answers, but he opened up a whole new way to think about it. I mean, think about the impact he had. From skepticism to empiricism, Descartes' famous, I think, therefore I am, and even today, consciousness, reality, it's all there, those echoes of his ideas.
He planted this seed of doubt that just keeps growing and branching out.
Yeah.
But going back to Arcesilaus himself for a minute, we talked about his skepticism, how he criticized the Stoics, the practical criterion and all that. But what was he actually trying to do? What was the point of it all?
Good question. And yes, scholars are still arguing about that. Some think he was just negative, focused on tearing down other people's ideas. But that seems too simple to me.
I could agree. It's like he was really struggling with these huge questions: knowledge, belief, what they are, how they work. But if he didn't think we could actually find the answers, what was the purpose of doing all this philosophy?
Maybe it wasn't about getting to some final truth, a neat and tidy answer. Maybe it was the process itself that mattered, the questioning, the challenging assumptions, the trying to understand better, even if you never get to be absolutely certain.
So the skepticism was the inquiry, in a way. It's how you test what you believe, get rid of dogma and bias, get closer to, well, maybe not the truth itself, but a better understanding of the world. A more honest one, for sure.
Yeah, I like that. It makes me think, how do we approach philosophy today? Are we too focused on being right, having the perfect argument, the ultimate theory? A little bit of that Arcesilaus skepticism might do us good.
Definitely. It reminds us to be curious, to be open to changing our minds, and to accept that often, doing philosophy, the journey is more valuable than getting to some final destination.
I think so, yeah. And who knows, maybe by embracing that not knowing, by constantly questioning and refining our understanding, we can actually get a bit closer to the truth, whatever that may be.
Well, on that note, I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive into the world of Arcesilaus. It's been mind-bending for sure, with all the twists and turns and philosophical paradoxes.
I've really enjoyed exploring these ideas with you. And to everyone listening, keep those questions alive. Keep the spirit of Arcesilaus going in your own philosophical adventures.
Don't be afraid to doubt, to question, to challenge what everyone else says. You never know. You might just find something truly amazing along the way. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.